Red Bull is introducing the second part of their upgrade package that aims to change the entire concept of the car compared to the RB19, but it seems like the Austrian team will find it a bit harder to dominate in the remainder of the season now that McLaren and Ferrari have shown some really good, promising signs about their own competitiveness. After the latest statements of Zak Brown, as well as the expectations from Ferrari's first massive upgrade package, backed up by Vasseur's optimism, Red Bull might find themselves in murky waters, especially considering the fact that they are no longer the best team in terms of tyre management and they do not have the strongest duo of drivers on the grid. With this in mind, could Imola be the race that will mark the turnaround point of the 2024 season? It goes without saying that Red Bull is the team to beat in 2024, but before we move forward with this video, we just want to say that we are reporting from a neutral point of view. We are not saying that Red Bull's pace will drop massively all of a sudden. We're merely pointing out towards the upgrades that McLaren and Ferrari are bringing to Imola and towards some of the obvious facts that even Red Bull hinted at as weaknesses in their own team. With that being said, let's see what this package is that could bring the Austrian team into waters they'd rather avoid with their new design and philosophy of the car. Ferrari is introducing the first upgrade package in Imola, and it's quite huge. If we're being honest with you, the entire car evolved to the point of the Maranello team introducing a new floor, side pod inlets, bodywork, as well as some minor changes like the outboard wing mirror stalk being extended in order to help condition the airflow along the upper surface of the side pod bodywork. However, the removal of the S-duct and the rear leg of the halo, as well as a change of the winglet that was housed at the latter location in a cobra-shaped vane, are some of the most eye-hitting changes that Maranello's team hopes will be more than enough to put themselves right up there in the battle with Red Bull. Ferrari believes that with their new design, the car will be 0.3 faster due to the fact that they'll be able to gain 15 downforce points, and from what we've seen right now, these 0.3 per second should be more than enough to fight with Red Bull on a pure race basis. Again, the Austrian team is bringing the second part of the upgrades on their own, and they are expecting a massive boost in performance as well. However, in Miami as well as in Suzuka, we've seen that the RB20 wasn't the best car when it comes to tyre management, something that Ferrari and McLaren have been able to further utilise in their own favour. Of course, in these two races, the pace of Verstappen was way too advantageous for the rest of the grid, which is why the tyre management didn't really matter at that point, combined with the fact that Leclerc, the only driver who was able to do a one-stopper in Suzuka, had a bad starting position and was not able to challenge the Dutchman properly. But in Miami, we've seen that even before Verstappen's damage to the floor, Piastri kept up a 3-second deficit in second place while keeping up ahead of both SF24s with a 50% upgraded car. Zak Brown himself said that he expects much more from the Aussie in Imola, labelling the MCL38 to be a very fast and competitive car from both of its drivers. Combined with their excellent tyre management they were able to showcase in Miami, we could easily conclude that they will be very competitive this weekend. This is where Ferrari's upgrades come in with great importance to our topic as well. The team principal of the Maranello team has been loud and clear when talking about a potential win in Imola, saying that it would be definitely in their hands to show that the domination of Red Bull is not as present as it was in the past couple of years, and more importantly, it would be up to their on-track decisions to prove that they have what it takes to beat the Austrian squad. Furthermore, Vasseur elaborated, Red Bull is not anymore in the comfort zone of 2023 where it doesn't matter what happened after the second lap of the race. I think this is a game changer, especially if we talk about the management of the race, and I think this is an opportunity for us, because if we are doing another small step, I think we will be in a really good position to fight with them every single weekend. Most definitely, Ferrari's upgrades are showing a lot of potential, especially due to the fact that they've been able to test them in Fiorano in a 100-kilometre stint for both of the drivers. The initial conclusions are that they worked exactly like they should have. However, they are now in danger of losing the second fastest team title to McLaren, as much as as they are threatening to dethrone Red Bull from the top, which altogether makes it a very interesting and quite anticipating three-team battle for the front of the grid. Zak Brown has been very proud of what his team has achieved in the past couple of races, and obviously it would be the goal to continue the momentum from Miami, one in which Norris claimed his maiden win. But rest assured that once the first win comes, it's like an addiction, and you'd want to be standing on the highest place of the podium much more frequently now, which is something Brown believes could happen a lot more in this season, not just for Norris but for Piastri as well. When talking about a potential race win fight on a pure race basis between Norris and Verstappen, Zak Brown did not hide the fact that he believes that this will happen sooner rather than later, and once it happens, it won't be that pretty for the Austrian team. Further adding, I do think Lando can beat Max in a straight fight. I think it would be an awesome fight. I think many races would end in tears for one or the other or both. But I think as far as raw talent can be concerned, I've never seen someone faster than Lando. I'm sure Max is just as fast. I'm sure some people would disagree, and ultimately we'll never know until you see them in the same car. But from everything I can see of Lando, I don't see a faster racing driver out there. What is exciting is that Piastri can match him. As he gets more experience, I think he'll match him more often. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we must stay realistic and view the entire landscape as it currently stands. Verstappen is, of course, in a league of his own. And while the upgrades of Red Bull do have a potential to knock them off their perfect operating window, it is very unlikely to believe that they have been developing a car for so long only for them to have a wrong understanding of the car. But if we're to look at the latest statements from Adrian Newey regarding his satisfaction with this year's car, we did notice that he's not 100% happy with where the car is currently placed in, adding that some of the parts will have to be altered and changed for 2025. This goes to show cracks of vulnerability for the RB20, especially if you consider the fact that the team was forced to chase this design because of the success they've set with the RB19. And while they ultimately led every other team to chase the design, with which they won all but one race last season, it wouldn't have been very fruitful for them to do the same as well, leaving even more vulnerability on the table had they opted for this choice. But then again, this design is the best one on paper in terms of downforce generation, with the downside that it gives your car a very small operating window due to the extreme interpretation of the rules. When talking about the second part of the upgrades that Red Bull will bring to Imola, which would conclude the design change of the car, a process that started in Suzuka, Helmut Marko was not bothered about the competition. Further adding, I am not worried about McLaren being a threat in the championship. Norris is currently more than 50 points behind. Besides, we are bringing an upgrade to Imola, which I expect a lot from. However, it is worth mentioning that Red Bull acknowledged they would have lost the Miami GP regardless of the safety car scenario turning the other way around due to the extremely good pace that Norris presented in the race, which goes to show that the 2024 season is all but over. With all this in mind, the general belief is that Red Bull are under threat, and while it's far-fetched to say that they will lose the number one seat as early as in Imola, it would be a good indicator as to whether or not McLaren or Ferrari have made decent steps in order to give us a competitive remainder of 2024, and who knows, maybe even beat Verstappen in the remainder of the 18 races we have on the calendar. Do you think that Ferrari and McLaren do have it in themselves to pull this off? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and once you do, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.